Once is enough. I'll just introduce it. Hello, this is Dr. Allie and Livia Francis and Sally Garozzo on the Let's Talk Menopause with the Menopause Experts Club. And we have our guest speaker today, Elizabeth Whiter. All very exciting. And today is the October Let's Talk Menopause, so it's the 22nd of October. Yeah. So we're just going to let more people join for a few minutes, well, a few seconds.
Okay, so I'm going to start. Alison, you're right to let people in case anyone comes into the waiting room. Is that good?
Absolutely fine.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us, everybody, and a huge warm welcome tonight. Please don't be distracted by the bell that's going off. We want as many of you to really use this time and take away with you some of the expert advice from all the professionals in here that have a wealth of knowledge. And we have all been on our own menopause journey, so we are super passionate about helping other women on their own journeys. And we do feel that menopause is not talked about enough, even though it has been in the news. It's now in the school curriculum. We have Diane Danzebrink, who's really bringing this to the forefront with her campaign for menopause. And we believe that women should be educated about what's to come and how to create that smooth transition to their glorious goddess years. We believe that women shouldn't feel alone during this phase of their lives either, and I myself did feel alone when I went through the menopause in 2012. We have the incredible Dr. Allie Grimston. She's award-winning GP and a functional medicine practitioner and doctor, specialising in perimenopause and women's hormone balance. And Sally Garozzo, clinical therapist, who I actually met on Facebook. She's a perimenopause coach and founder of Inspiring Talks Brighton and the Menopause Mindset podcast, which you must listen to. And she will be discussing a certain aspect of the menopause that she will tell you about a little bit later. And of course, we have our guest speaker today, Lisa. So, Dr. Alison, would you like to introduce Lisa in a little bit more detail?
There we go. Right, well, Liz Whiter and I go back a long way. In fact, I first met her in 2003 when I was burning out and realizing how important it was for me to get back connected with animals. So I grew up on a farm, and I had grown away from that when I was working full-time as a GP with 2 young kids, and I just burnt out. Didn't know anything about adrenal fatigue then in those days, of course, not with the medical training. And Liz Whiter came into my life as an animal healer who trains people to become animal healers and equine healers. And in addition, she does amazing work with nutritional kinesiology, so using kinesiology to work out what nutritional adjustments people need to make in their lives, which is amazing. She's a founder of the Healing Animals organization and of chakra dancing, among other things, and author of at least 2 books, which she'll tell us about later. So this is Liz Whiter. So at the moment, Liz, you're still muted, and we're just going to, there we go.
Yes. Lovely. Hello, everybody. Lovely to see you all this evening. And I'm so excited to hear from our other wonderful speakers tonight. Allie is truly a fantastic general practitioner, and we've been there for each other all over the years. And I went through the menopause when I was 40, and I'm very interested to hear how I can help other people, especially my students and graduates. And I know Allie has helped some of my students and graduates as well through very natural ways and means. And I'm a healer, and I've been healing now for nearly about 28 years, and I have a human and an animal clinic, and I think one of my dogs is here this evening, little Lily, who's now 16 years of age. And I'm a great proponent of raising those endorphins, our natural endorphins, through movement, dance and music. I create music as well to raise the endorphin levels of the body. And mindfulness, creative meditation is extremely important in my world, but so is being out in nature. So the chakra dancing that Alison was talking to you about is basically a workout for the mind, body and the soul. And we go through each stage of the body, from the physical body, from the root to the crown. If anybody here is au fait with chakras, which are interconnected with endorphins and also the endocrine glands. And so for me, it's all about raising that awareness in the body and moving the body through dance, through movement, is extremely important. It was important for me when I went through the menopause at 40, and I had a DEXA scan about 6 years ago. I'm 53 now, 54 in a few weeks' time, and it was important for me to have a DEXA scan to see where I was in terms of osteoporosis or anything like that. And what was really fantastic, this is where I absolutely adore scans and blood tests and all sorts of things like this to find out what's going on in the body. And 6 years ago, the scan said I had hips of a 35-year-old, my arms, my whole skeletal system was at least 12 years younger than where I was on having the scan, which was really encouraging. And I would suggest anybody who is interested in the data to have a scan, because then you can see exactly where you are with your bone density. So a lot of my work is outside. I love to attract as much vitamin D into the body. I think that's really important through natural sunlight. And so a lot of my movement is done outside. Some of you might be familiar with forest bathing, which is really important to bring about the senses at a much deeper level. And in forest bathing, we're out in nature, and we're looking at trees, at plants, at flowers, but at a very, very deep level of understanding, as in our visual. And so we're actually counting almost the petals, the leaves, and really connecting with that intention of really absorbing all of nature around us. And dancing outside is also very important. The sound side of things is important to raise endorphins in the body, and those endorphins, the serotonin, and the oxytocin levels, which I know a lot of you ladies here have got families, got children, that beautiful bonding that we have with our baby when we are releasing those hormones is exactly the same when we're hugging a tree, and or whether we are listening to birdsong and things like that. And so when I went through the menopause at 40, I was postmenopausal at 40, and in fact my GP was so embarrassed because he said to me, Liz, you certainly don't need any blood tests to see if, you know, of course you're not menopausal, but I was postmenopausal. And what was important was where the fatigue levels were really setting in, and some of the depression that was setting in. It was really important to think about our well-being. And so, you know, I would say to anybody, even when you're not feeling great, is to try and get yourself outside. We've got to keep the body moving. And that doesn't mean to say you have to be a great dancer or anything like that, but it's actually being in the rhythm of the day and being outside, being able to go for a lovely walk, be around the trees. And yes, take your mobile phone with you, but have it on aeroplane mode or something. Have it there for safety. But the worst thing you can do when you're out in nature is walking along the street, reading or whatever. You're not engaging with the senses around you. And so the sunshine, the vitamin D, the beautiful smells, using our sense of hearing. So when we do feel very jaded and we feel very tired and a foggy head, this has been the best way for me forward. Another area that is important for me is the nutrition side of things. And I trained in nutritional kinesiology, and the kinesiology is fantastic, where you are asking the body, what does your body really need? This isn't about reading things up on the internet and things like that. It's really getting in touch. We call this being intuitive. Everybody here on Zoom tonight is incredibly intuitive. And I find that my best intuition comes after that nature walk, after being out and about with just the trees, the sunshine, the air, and then coming in from that experience allows you to have a very, very clear mind, a very clear body, and then you can really just start to talk. And there is within kinesiology, it's called body talk, and you can talk to your body and really find out. It's very interesting when you speak to women who are pregnant, just the cravings they had. My mother had cravings for tomatoes when she was pregnant with me. But anyway, so you go with those cravings sometimes. But what's important here is listening to the body. And I have found that I have needed things like seaweed. I've had blood tests, and with Dr. Allie, of course. The blood profiles are so important when you're with your GP, or whether you're with Dr. Allie or whoever, so you can start to just see these minute areas that you might be missing out on. But I was certainly missing out on, in my body, with important electrolytes. And so seaweed, for instance, came up for me, and I now, I actually, in one of my books, I forage for a lot of foods. I'm blessed to live in the South Downs National Park, and you know, the last couple of days have been sweet chestnuts. So we have got masses at the moment of berries and nuts and things that we can use. So rose hips, which are the biggest form of vitamin C. I would say to you all to go and start picking rose hips, because we've got an abundance of those. And that vitamin C, as we know, for anti-cancer treatment and propping up the body, especially as we're coming into the winter months now. So the rose hips, if you're wondering what to do with them, you can even prick the rose hips and pop them into beautiful local honey and allow that to infuse. You can put that on your porridge. It's a very simple thing to do. With the sweet chestnuts that are out at the moment, they are incredibly important as a form of protein, as we know, and plant fibre. And so with all of these wonderful natural, if you like, foraging that you can do at the moment, it's really, really important for the body to stock up. So coming back to the seaweed, I actually work on the Isle of Wight a lot. I work with primates, and I'm doing a study at the moment with Portsmouth University about enrichment and using tree browse. And this is important for us because these are our relatives, right? And so it's really important that, you know, from observing them, we can find out a lot about what we need. And they are great leaf eaters. And one of the things that I've been drafted in is that a lot of our primate friends are eating a lot of vegetables and fruit, but that is also causing some spiking in the sugar levels and causing some level of diabetes. And so those leaves and foods like that are very important, because as we know with the menopause, one of the things that happens is we put on weight. We only have to look at a biscuit and you know, we can, where is this weight coming from? You know, we're exercising the same and we're finding that we're putting weight on. But seaweed, okay, coming back to, I digressed, but on the Isle of Wight, I go to small coves and I pick seaweed. I wash it well when I get home. I cook it up and I eat it, or I will dry it out and make it into powder, and I make beautiful seaweed sort of biscuits, because sometimes when we all get hungry, it's very easy to go and grab a biscuit or a piece of cake. And everybody who's listening today, never stop eating something that you really love. Eat a little of what you fancy. Never deny yourself the little pleasures in life. But with seaweed, what it does is it suppresses the appetite. You know, I work in Japan as well, and you know, in Japan, it's for men and women. Seaweed is a great part of their diet, and but it's absolutely fabulous. It really does suppress some of those little feelings and of needing something to eat. And it's extremely good for you. You've got high amounts of magnesium, zinc, all these kind of trace elements that we need in the body, which I feel we're lacking greatly unless we can take a very good form of supplementation. And I do like to get a lot of my supplementation out of food. I've always cooked ever since I was a little girl, so I'm already in the kitchen doing things and wanting to cook. But the seaweed side of things, folks, is fantastic. One of the things that we have found with being perimenopausal or menopausal is there is an underactive thyroid, so hypothyroidism. And so instead of lunging sometimes for something synthetic, it is worth looking at. If you're borderline, obviously go and see Dr. Allie first of all, but very important, if you did want it to have more iodine in the body, then seaweed is fabulous. And of course, around our own shores here, we've got lots of seaweed we can get. We don't want to get seaweed from obviously where lots of boats are and launch pad areas, but small coves are great. And also you might come across what we call sea cabbage. So sea cabbage looks like a cabbage, but it actually grows along the shores of the sea, and it's high in nutrients. So people here listening tonight who do a lot of cooking like I do, I live, sleep and breathe food, and making basic things up. I've not got time to be doing elaborate food. I just love basic good home cooking. So the seaweed, I grind it down and I add, because I do like a little bit of savoury, so a bit of cheese and stuff, and I make these into these savoury type of snacks, which are really delicious, and they're packed full of vitamins. So the seaweed really helps me. But as I mentioned before, the big thing for me has been moving my body to raise the endorphins, because when I was going, have always been, and Allie knows this, I've always been a very, very positive person, still am. And but I couldn't get over how my energy levels dipped, but also feelings of, awash with some lethargy and depression. But I found the biggest motivator of all was myself. I ended up talking to myself and going, right, this is what you've got to do. Come on, you've got to get moving the body. And as soon as I started to do some movement with the body, and I think that's why Zumba, for instance, has been such a fantastic godsend for so many men and women, because we can't forget our men that go through a midlife crisis as well sometimes, and maybe a male menopause, which I think it's important that we bring our partners in on this Zoom. However, the body is the greatest healer of all. Your own body, not a supplement or anything external. At the end of the day, it's about what you can do yourself and finding what works for you. And for me, it has been it's been finding great music that I can automatically, as soon as I start listening to it, I feel good. I don't want to listen to music that's going to make me sad. I want to make me find music that I can really find that can be the personal trainer. The music actually can be the personal trainer and really get the body moving. And where Zumba, I think, has got a very good niche in the market is because you're out there for half an hour. I mean, I wouldn't know what the steps are. I've hardly done Zumba. I've done it a couple of times, but I've loved every minute of it. And I don't care what I look like. I just love moving the body. So raising those endorphins in the body is very, very important. And the dance that Ali was referring to that I created in 2000, we now have 300 or 400 graduates all over the world who have trained. It's a 5-day training course here. We can't do this online. We have to be together to do that, to really fully appreciate what we're all experiencing from working with the adrenals and the kidney energy coming into the ovaries, the central area of the body here, which is the seat of everyone's creation, but the seat of our power, our empowerment. So working with the hips, and as we move on up into the stomach, working with the insulin levels of the body, and working with our own personal power. And the music then takes us on a journey up into the heart, which I'm of the era of Donna Summer, I Feel Love, and that real disco beat. And so we really want to express the body through really light music that takes us up then into meditative music, which we call mindful meditation, which we're all really aware of here. And the music then takes us into basic yoga poses, basic stretch, so that we can just bring the body back into balance. And by the end of the session, one is feeling much lighter. The chat has left the mind, and we've raised those serotonin and those dopamine levels. So that side of it's very important. Something I work now with, I don't know, how many of you have been on a gong bath? Anybody here been on a gong bath with gongs? Yeah, so I train in gongs. So my sound, we've got 5 albums out now, and then I've moved on into more of the gongs and working with a couple of oncologists actually, because sound is absolutely incredible. Every single cell in the body has their own, as you know, every cell in the body has its own mind, if you like, and that can either be positive or negative. And it's really important that in the body, with those 30 trillion odd cells, billion cells that we've got in the body, how important it is to have them oscillating and vibrating in, well, we want in a positive way. And sound, there's been so much scientific evidence now around sound healing, sound itself. Some of you may know about the Mozart effect that has been so widely written about. And when you think how old Mozart was when he wrote his most incredible work, he was a teenager. And, you know, and in those years of those great symphonies that he wrote, the music is very upbeat, it's very uplifting. And with the gongs that we play, it's a very serious business. Every single national newspaper, when I was in my 20s, I worked for the Daily Mail, but every single newspaper have written extensively now. Critics have gone along thinking, what is this? You know, is somebody going to be bashing a gong? But it's nothing to do with that. The sounds that are emitted from these most magnificent gongs have, you know, sent people to sleep, have really made people feel very, very balanced. All the chat has gone out of their head, and feeling really great. And so, you know, the area that I'm interested in, the whole body, and working with the whole body through all the senses, whether we're eating, dancing, listening, being out in nature. So for me, it's the whole thing. There isn't one thing. There is never one thing that is going to fix something. It's embracing, you know, everything that that is out there for us to use. And with the gongs, I thoroughly recommend everybody here. Obviously,
I'll invite you back sometime, Liz, and have you with the gong bath one time. That would be fabulous, wouldn't it?
Well, actually, funny you should say that, Dr. Allie. I have just invested in a microphone to allow that with Zoom.
Yeah.
And so I'd be more than happy. We could go into the barn. We're in my sort of office at the moment, but we could go into the barn, where all the gongs are. Have a lovely. I'd be really happy to put that on for everybody.
That will be the next thing. Thank you so much, Liz. It's been wonderful to hear from you. It's amazing, all the work. And I agree, holistic is how it needs to be. We need to be working with mind, body, spirit, and in many different ways. And the medical establishment approach of one pharmaceutical for each thing is just all wrong, and it's not taking the individual variation into consideration. Livia, you can talk now.
Okay. Hi everybody, thanks so much for joining us tonight. My name is Livia Francis. I didn't do an introduction earlier, but I've been in health and fitness for 31 years. I'm very passionate about what I do. I come from a resistance training background. I have been doing this for, like I said, over 30 years. And when I hit my menopause in 2012, even though I was fit and healthy, looking after my diet, mum of 3, really busy life, it really did knock me sideways. And it took some time before I actually realized, similar to you, Liz, that I was actually in the menopause, because I thought I was too young, and I was a couple of years older than you. And I remember going to the doctor and feeling totally overwhelmed. I didn't feel that my body was mine. The hot sweats were causing anxiety, lack of sleep, and my energy for training, because that's what I did, and giving that energy to other people, making them feel motivated, had completely gone. And eventually I did have a blood test, and they went, oh, sorry, yes, you are in your menopause. And that's when I was able to do something about it. So out of that, I founded the Menopause Lifestyle Solution, which really is my online portal, my baby that I'm nurturing and growing, especially with where we are now, with everyone being so open to Zoom. I mean, look at us sitting here. We probably, half of us wouldn't have been on here before March 2020, but we're so used to communicating like this. So today, rather than just chat about the benefits of exercise and endorphins and how to feel better, I was going to do a little bit of a demo for you that hopefully you can take something away. I don't have long. I'm going to fit it all into 10 minutes. But the most important thing as we go through our menopause is to make sure that we're really working on our posture. So our lean body mass. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to turn into arm muscles. We're not going to do that. But what we need to do is think about structure. So as we know, in the menopause, our bone density decreases. So it's really important to strengthen the muscle around the bone, to get the blood flow to the bone, but also it's important for posture. So whilst cardiovascular exercising classes are great, and I really do enthuse all my ladies to go and do them and add cardiovascular training in, because as you know, our hearts also become vulnerable as our estrogen drops, and many other symptoms can cause distress. However, if you put in resistance training and increase your lean tissue, it actually means that your lean body mass, your body mass index will decrease, your body fat will decrease, because as lean tissue increases, your body fat decreases. It's it tilts on a scale like this. So a really interesting scenario is for you to try to use resistance training. Now you can use your body weight. You don't have to use dumbbells, and I set up my little gym. This is how I actually teach full on. So you can see behind me here, I've got some resistance bands. One's on a radiator. It's attached around at the top. You can see the attachment's quite safe. You can get door attachments as well. And the other band is attached midway. So you can do different exercises which actually represent different body parts. So today I'm going to show you the back exercise, because this one's particularly technically, you've got to get it correct. So I thought I'd give you some technical points, at the same time talk about the benefits of exercise. The other thing that I wanted to show you tonight was the other tool that I use. Now, you may have seen them a lot online. I mean, they're everywhere on Instagram. But these resistance bands, and they're not particularly thick, what they'll do is they cause resistance with the muscle. But the key here is that they don't overload the joint. So whereas you go to a gym and you might pick up a dumbbell or work a machine, it's very easy to cause injury and cause stress to the body. So the resistance training that we're doing is home-based because most of us are at home at the moment. And I remember when quarantine started and I thought, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? You know, half of my clients that are gym-based won't be able to get the necessary results that they want. But as we persisted and we just used resistance bands with handles and these resistance bands, we found that their lean body tissue was still preserved. So by not overloading the joint and doing little and often, and not necessarily working for a whole hour, you can get this into 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. You're doing it at home. If you're doing it at home, you're more likely to create a habit that will last you long term. So whilst thinking, oh, do you know what? I haven't got the energy for this. But if you find that little extra piece of energy by good nutrition, it's exactly what Liz was talking about. It matters. Your gut health is fundamental to your menopause, as is the exercise that you're doing, okay? Not only for your gut health, but also for your thinking, your cognitive thinking, to keep you alert, to make you less anxious, to make you feel more positive. So these are some exercises that I would advise that you try. Now, we can do it just with body weight, or we can use the bands. So the back exercise I'm going to show you in a minute, but this exercise in particular is going to activate through your glutes. So your posterior chain, you'll think it's hamstrings. I'm going to take this off because I always overheat when I do this. So it's your hamstrings, your calf, and your glutes. So it's this part of your body here. And we're lying down on the floor. You're going to breathe in really slowly, and I want you to do what's called a pelvic tilt. Now, I'm sure some of you are familiar with bridges, glute bridges, or maybe hip thrusts in the more training world, it's called. But I want you to breathe. So you breathe in. As you breathe out, I want you to contract your core. So you press your belly button in towards your spine. You squeeze your bottom cheeks together. You press through the heels, and you contract and press the pelvis up. Breathe in and relax. So what we're doing is we're just activating the muscles in the lower body, contracting through the pelvis, squeezing your bottom cheeks together, and then releasing. We're doing 5 of these. Now, this is just warming up the muscles. So as you know, before exercise, you have to warm up. Now, in the situation where you're at home, you don't have an exercise bike to jump onto all the time. So what we do is we do bodyweight exercises within the range of movement that we're going to work, okay? So by squeezing the pelvis, we're activating deep tissue muscles in and around the core. So squeeze, and remember the pregnancy exercise, not post-baby, the elevator floor, squeezing the pelvic floor at the same time. Now, as we go through the menopause, you are very susceptible to a weakening pelvic floor. So as you do your bridge, you're going to squeeze and then release. Now, you're going to go into a full bridge, and just for time's sake, I'm going to show you how to work these. Now, usually I would say to the ladies, 10 to 20 bridges just with body weight to warm up. So we're going to go straight into this one. You're going to take the legs slightly apart and pop them down on the floor. The heels are behind your bottom. Relax through your upper body. Get rid of the stress through the neck. You do this with the breath. So you breathe in. As you breathe out, it's the pelvic tilt. You push through the glute. You drive up through the heel. The hands and the arms are so relaxed on the floor. You curl up through the spine. You hold the position. You squeeze your glutes at the top. Then you gradually roll down through the spine and then relax on the floor. Now, if you're pressing on the band at the same time as doing the bridge, this is going to work the outside of the glutes. So you have your glute maximus, which if you think of a peach, is the bit that sticks out. You have your glute minimus and your glute medius, which is either side of the same part of the bottom. Okay? So you have to work a muscle 3-dimensionally. We are a 3-dimensional object. We can't just work in one domain. So if you work by pressing up, you're also pressing the knees out from the hip. What's the one thing in the menopause where we become vulnerable? The joints, yeah? Knee joints, hip joints, elbow joints, etc., and even through the neck. So strengthening the hip by pressing the knees out to the side. You're driving up through the pelvic floor. You're also working core muscles. Pull your tummy in, squeeze your pelvic floor, and down again. So we're working consistently, and we do a body check as we do it. We breathe out, we roll up, and we take it down. Okay, so we don't have a lot of time. I'm going to show you another exercise for the side of the bottom specifically. I always make sure that you stretch in between each exercise. So you're going to draw the legs into the chest and press the lower back into the floor. So spinal health is paramount with every session. There's always a spinal exercise. Okay, we won't have time to show this today, but it's generally good to work in body parts so that you don't overtrain, especially if you're working say 10 to 15 minutes, 5 days a week on your exercise, which is okay if you're only using body weight. You can't overtrain it, okay? So you put the hand forward, you keep the hips forward, you pull the tummy in, you contract through the core, you lift the leg up, you hold it. And when you contract a muscle under tension, you build strength. What's the one thing that we need as we get older? Strength. What happens when we fall when we get older? We fall onto brittle bones. So if we have the muscles supported just by doing simple things like this, your future self will thank you because you'll be stronger posturally. You'll be stronger through your muscles. You'll be stronger through your core. You will be stronger through your back. Your spine will be supported. You'll feel good because you'll be releasing those endorphins every single day. That will increase your dopamine levels. Your insulin sensitivity will be better. Your positivity will be better. And your body will look better because you have more lean tissue and less body fat. So you're going to open the legs, you squeeze through the glute, you release halfway down. The muscle is under tension the whole time. You're lifting with the glutes. So this is the side bit of the glute, not the back. So you lift up, you hold them down the whole time, pulling the tummy in towards the spine, relaxing through the shoulders. There's lots to remember, isn't there? So you lift up and then slowly down. You breathe out as the muscle contracts. You breathe in as it comes down. So 2 really easy, simple exercises that you can try. I would do it just with body weight. Those of you that are used to exercising, you can go straight into using a band. When you buy these bands, they come in 5 resistance. So you start with really light and then you can work up to heavy. And that enables you to progressively overload the muscle safely. And remember, there's no bouncing, there's no twisting. So I've got arthritis in my hips, and these exercises keep my hips nice and healthy, as well as walking, as well as cardiovascular exercise. Okay, one last one I'm going to show you because I did want to show this one because it's a little bit unusual. So over in the corner, as I said before, I've got an resistance band set up with handles. So these are really effective tools. If you don't want to buy dumbbells, I thoroughly recommend these. You can get them on Amazon. They're so cheap. So you need to sit underneath the resistance band. So I sit on a chair because it's quite a tight band. You're pulling down the handles and we're going to work the back. Now, why posturally do we have to work the back? The latissimus dorsi muscle is a big V-shaped muscle and it tapers in at the waist. So if you work and shape that muscle, and this is about shaping, you know, it's good to feel an adequate body weight, but it's also good if you can use the time to shape as well. So if you understand the shapes of the muscle, visualize it. I have muscle charts in front of me when I train. I always tell my ladies, get a muscle chart so you can get that mind to muscle connection, so you know what muscle you're training. So quite often when we exercise, we just go through the motions and we don't really know what body part we're actually trying to hit. If you can get the connection here to the muscle, you automatically progressively overload the muscle tissue. The mind is so powerful. Sports people do it. Meditation, mindset. Okay, what am I training? How fast do I need to go? How quickly do I have to get to the end? And you can do that yourself. Yeah. So it's about connecting the mind to muscle. So very, very quickly, with the hands are forward. Now the arms are coming directly to the side. The key to this is to not overgrip. So the hands are literally levers and you're pulling down to the side. You're holding that position. The tummy is in, you lean forward from the hip. The shoulders are back. You release up under tension really slowly. This is the bit that builds the strength. So you're going up and then you're going to pull down to the side and hold. You breathe in, you feel the stretch under the armpit, that is your latissimus dorsi stretching, and then before you go to the full stretch, you pull it down and hold again. So this is a really good postural exercise, breathing in, breathing out, you pull and you hold, you engage and slowly up again, all right? So a very simple movement, but technically, if you get these movements, if you can get the movements to work for you and you understand, okay, which muscle is it? How do I feel the muscle? So the way to feel the muscle is to stop this one taking over. We lift like this all the time, but you have to disconnect from your forearm and connect to your back. And that's how I work with body shaping. So I've only had 10 minutes, but I hope you found it really interesting. And it really is about progressively overloading the muscle safely, but understanding which muscle you're working. And in the menopause, more lean tissue, less body fat. And I know there's a hormone element into that. And I know Dr. Ali is going to tell us all about that. So thank you so much for joining me, and do check out the menopauselifestylesolution.com, and thank you for your support. So I will hand over to Dr. Ali. Dr. Ali, would you like to step in?
Certainly, it's me messaging Sally to say she could go next, but you're calling the shots today, Livia, so absolutely fine. So today, I think because there's been a lot of focus on osteoporosis, I thought I'd talk a little bit about how about osteoporosis and the things that increase your risk of osteoporosis, a little bit about the medication that we use in the NHS and why they're a bad thing, but I still have to wear two heads, like a two-headed ogre or something, and in my NHS work I still have to prescribe them, but why it's better to do things as naturally as possible. So osteoporosis is when there are two types of significant cells in the bones, the osteoclasts and the osteoblasts. So the osteoblasts are what build up the bone, and the osteoclasts are what claw away and break down the bone. And our bone remodeling is constant, and it's a balance between these. So a balance between the osteoblast activity and osteoclast activity. And we want to stimulate osteoblast activity, especially after the menopause, when as women, this is a big problem, osteoporosis and osteopenia, which is the halfway house to osteoporosis. It's a big problem for us women in the post-menopause, and it does affect men as well. We talked a little bit, Livia mentioned, I think Liz mentioned a little bit about andropause or male menopause. They lose their testosterone as well, and that will increase osteoporosis. So some of the things that you really need to make sure you do, the best bone density is built up in your teens. I know it's a bit late for all of us here, and it's a real problem with young women, and has been for many decades, because young women in their teens, unless they happen to be really sporty, like Livia has been for her whole life, we tend to reduce our calcium intake, and we tend to go on diets, and we tend to be less active, and it's a real problem. And but given that we're past our teens, we can still build up our bone density by making sure we're doing the strength training and the weight-bearing exercise that is so good for us. Now, some of the reasons why osteoporosis is such a problem during and after the menopause, there's a bit of a delay. It is because of the lack of the hormones that make this big difference to our bone density. So one of the things that can be a problem in this time is stress. So a lot of us, I know we three, the Menopause Experts Club particularly, have this background of stress compounding our perimenopause symptoms. I burnt out in 2003 and 2004, which is when I met Liz. Stress increases the cortisol release in the body, and if we have chronic stress and chronic cortisol release, that's going to impact our osteoporosis risk, because cortisol one of the main pharmaceutical causes of osteoporosis, so the main doctor-induced causes of osteoporosis, is prednisolone treatment, which is the steroid treatments that are used for asthma and for some inflammatory bowel disease, arthritis. So some of these situations, prednisolone and polymyalgia. Prednisolone can cause magical effects on pain and inflammation in the body, but it has such a cost, not just the weight gain that is more obvious. So we need to manage our stress levels and do meditation and get out in nature and all these things that Liz was alluding to try and reduce our cortisol release, reduce our burnout rate, and that will improve and that will help support our bone density. Surprisingly, another thing that impacts our bone density is actually soft drinks, particularly sparkling drinks. So even sparkling water, mine is not, oops, it appears when I've got this virtual background, but there we go. But this is non-sparkling. But even sparkling water will impact the phosphate in the bones. And the bones are made up of calcium and phosphorus. And so these are really important. So try and keep your fizzy drink intake to a minimum. And also you need to make sure you're not taking too many antacids. So, or reduce and stop antacids completely if you can. And proton pump inhibitors, which are the pharmaceutical version as well, because these will stop you absorbing your calcium and magnesium properly through the gut, and then that again will impact your bone density. So increase your sunlight levels so that you're getting as much vitamin D naturally as possible. And I also recommend supplementing with vitamin D and magnesium and calcium, among other things. Now, when we look at the hormones, the classic thing is that most doctors understand that estrogens are important for osteoporosis. Originally, HRT was actually licensed for the prevention of osteoporosis, but then when we started having those studies of harm that were misinterpreted and were publicized and got a whole generation of women so they didn't get the benefits of HRT. That was deleted from what we call the indications for prescribing HRT, but it still stands that HRT is brilliant for preventing and treating osteoporosis. And if you are in the perimenopause and you suffer from osteoporosis and osteopenia, and you don't actually have a problem with a personal history of breast cancer, it's a really good idea to use HRT as part of your osteoporosis plan. So most doctors understand that estrogen is important, but what they don't understand is that the other hormones are important. So progesterone, it's that natural balancer to estrogen. It helps modulate the estrogen's effect on the receptors, and it's really important for bone density. Testosterone, so that male hormone that we all have, or women have, that is depleted in the perimenopause and the postmenopause as well. And if we are depleted of testosterone, that again will impact our bone density. So that's why I'm passionate about the actual more natural hormone approach that I use in my bioidentical hormone clinic, where if somebody is needful of that, I will recommend testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, and DHEA, and these in balance. And I also recommend ways that we can naturally boost our testosterone and estrogen and progesterone in release, because there are still some areas. I mean, our adrenal glands are great. They're our saving grace after the menopause. So even if you've had your ovaries removed, your adrenal glands will still produce some of these hormones and produce some of these hormone precursors like pregnenolone that can then be converted into estrogen and progesterone in the body. So that's one of the things that, what is DHEA? We're going to answer questions at the end, so I'll explain about DHEA later. So, and I was going to mention about the biphosphonates. So in the medical establishment, when you're diagnosed with osteoporosis, the medical establishment approach is to prescribe biphosphonates. And this has been the main treatment for osteoporosis for decades. It works by slowing down the way that the body eliminates damaged bone tissue. So it slows down the osteoclast function, where it's breaking down the bone. And the trouble is that with long-term treatment, you do get an increase. What we see is an increase in apparent bone density, but an increase in the brittleness of that thicker bone. So the bones are more brittle and therefore still at risk of fracture. And in addition, there are other side effects which are rare but a problem, and one of them is jawbone deterioration, so you get osteonecrosis of this bone here, and another is ulceration of the esophagus. So one of the things about taking the biphosphonates like alendronate, which can be taken just weekly, you have to have it on an empty stomach with a full glass of water while you're sitting upright. Right, there's all these rules about taking them that not every person will really remember to do. So it is quite complicated. And then there is this problem with the brittleness of the bones. And that is why we now have a trend towards only prescribing for 5 years at a time and then stopping. Okay, so I'm not sure how long I've gone on. It must be nearly Sally's turn. So we'll answer questions at the end, and I'm making a note of all the questions, so I'll go through them for the rest of this. Okay, Sally.
Hey everyone. Thank you, Livia, for your wonderful demonstration. I really enjoyed that. I was really pumped. I was like, yeah, I want to get up and do this.
Yes.
Yeah, and Liz, absolutely loved your talk. Really resonated with a lot of what you said. I'm a musician myself, and haven't really written music for probably about 4 years, but absolutely missing it and really wanting to get it back in my life. But the chakra dancing, I did something very similar in Skiros about 10 years ago. Dance in the Rainbow, it was called, and it was all about the chakras, dancing through the chakras. Really helpful. And you've just reminded me that I totally need to get back into it also. Thank you very much. Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, my name's Sally Garozzo. I'm a menopause mindset coach. I am a rapid transformational therapist, and I am the founder of the Menopause Mindset podcast. And I sort of help women going through their midlife transition with all the mindset stuff and all the baggage that they're carrying with them from the past. And we know that the menopause requires a massive change. It is the change that we're going through, and it's called the change for a reason, because it is a change and it requires change, and change is hard. So that's how I help women. I take them through this very powerful 2 to 3 hour process, which is done under hypnosis to help them understand where their limitations, where their blocks to self-care have actually come from. And that might be, health, it might be finances, it might be money blocks, abundance blocks to receiving love, giving love. So it might be relationships. So I have like my 3 pillars of the menopause, which is physical health, relational health, and financial health as well. So we work in all of those areas. So my talk today is called How Your Mind Affects Your Menopause. And I wanted to talk about this because there's a lot of information out there about how your menopause affects your mind, but which we know that, the declining estrogen affects the hypothalamus, the amygdala, the hippocampus, and, we get all these mental health problems at menopause. But less information about how your mind can influence your menopause. And as a hypnotherapist, that's what I'm massively interested in. So I thought you might like to know that the Mayo Clinic did a study which showed there is, in fact, a correlation between women who have had adverse childhood experiences and recent trauma, so some traumatic experiences, and more severe menopausal symptoms. And when I discovered this study, I was like, my mind was blown, because I think I'd instinctively known that. And when I looked at the type of clients that were coming to me for RTT, I realized that's when the penny dropped for me, that they were all women going through their midlife transition and they were trying to clear out the past. And when I looked for this information, there it was. And I was just like, okay, it's all to do with the menopause. So we know that your declining hormones does affect your mind, but your mind also has your ability to positively influence your menopause, because if it can make it worse, if your mind can make your menopause worse, then it just by logic, it has to be able to make it better. So a lot of you here have probably heard of the placebo effect. And this is when your mind responds to an expectation positively or negatively. So we know that your mind has got this power to influence your body, really in a way that science is just probably beginning to understand. But we as therapists and healers, we've known this for such a long time. And you know, the sages of yesteryear know all about this as well. But this is where it gets exciting, and this is where I believe that hypnosis could be hugely effective, not only at reducing stress, which, as we know, is key for menopause, but also potentially, and I have no scientific evidence for this, but potentially turning the dial back up on our estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. I mean, I recently worked with somebody for fertility and to help her get her hormones going again. So if it can work for fertility, why can't it work for menopause? Maybe, just a thought, throwing it out there. But I also wanted to talk about the power of the imagination as well, because I think the imagination has such a massive influence on the body. And Livia alluded to this with, you know, imagining the muscles building and growing and as you train them. So you're going to love this, Livia. But basically, I found this study done in 2004. There was a study done by the Department of Biomedical Engineering at the Lerner Research Center in Cleveland. And they found that simply by imagining an exercise over and over and over again, they found an increase in muscle strength by 35%, as opposed to 53% in the participants that actually did the exercise. So the exercise was this. They repeated these little finger extensions 15 times. So they did 15 extensions and contractions at a time with a 20-second rest period for 15 minutes, 5 days a week for 3 months. So the people that actually did the exercise had increased muscle strength by 53%, and people that just imagined doing the exercise had a 35% increase in muscle strength. I mean, that's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Does that mean we actually have to do exercise? Of course we do. There's so many other benefits. But there are other more day-to-day effects that we know of where the mind has a physical effect on the body. You know, if you imagine sucking a lemon, if you imagine it hard enough, you are going to start salivating. And that is a response to something imagined. That's a physical response to something imagined. If you imagine your wildest sexual fantasy, ladies, imagine it. Go on, I give you permission. Christian Grey, whatever you fancy, you will probably start to get aroused. It's not happening, but there is something happening. That is a physical happening in response to something imagined. If you imagine your worst case scenario, and I'm not going to give you any ideas, but if you imagine something not very nice, you can start accelerating your heart rate, just like that. It will just happen. If you imagine your favorite cream cake with lashings of butterscotch sauce or whatever you like, you are going to have an overwhelming urge to eat it, because that's how the mind works. So these are very, very simple things that we know of. And most of us are using our imaginations in the wrong way. Most of us are using our imaginations to freak us out, to elevate our stress, to worry about things that are never going to happen, because a lot of this stuff comes from the way that we're programmed, from childhood, from our parents, from culture, from social media influence. So what if we then took control? What if we took control And we decided to spend 20 to 25 minutes a day focusing on symptom clearing. What if we could focus on cooling our hot flush? What if we could focus on elevating our libido, or clearing our brain fog, or our hair growing back, or our weight shedding, melting off us? What would happen then? And I think it's important to understand that it's important to understand how visualization works, because when we know how it works, we believe it more. And and when we believe it more, that's when the placebo effect really kicks in. So I'm nearly finished, but I just wanted to extract some information from David Hamilton's book, which are the 6 ways that visualization works. And we know that visualization has a real impact on somebody's immune system. And we know that in order to have a healthy menopause, we need to have a strong, healthy immune system, because it means less inflammation, and inflammation can cause havoc in the body. So when we use visualization to impact our immune system, it means better digestion, better blood flow, less headaches, better detoxification. Visualization directly impacts the nervous system, which I told you about before. You know, if you start thinking about worst case scenario, the heart goes, the sympathetic nervous system engages. When we imagine that, you know, stroking a Liz's dog, or cuddling a horse, or yeah, that's it, get your dog for us. Oh, yes. This is what I'm talking about. This is the oxytocin. This is the nervous system. Oh, so cute. That's it. If we imagine, and in Liz's case, she doesn't have to imagine because the dog's right there, but if we imagine cuddling cute kittens or cute babies, we get that, the parasympathetic nervous system kicks in, which is wonderful. It helps with, you know, when our nervous system is regulated, we get better temperature control, we get better hormone activation, we get better digestion, better mood, better productivity levels, which is going to aid our self-worth and the way that we value ourselves as well. Visualization has a direct impact on our neuropeptides. Our neuropeptides are those small proteins that affect the way that we feel, like your oxytocin, things like that. Again, it's going to lower your blood pressure. I'm just looking at that gorgeous dog. Regulates the heart rate, helps with digestion. So, you know, it's win-win all round. And when we are doing something that is helping us, we feel more empowered, and feeling more empowered, actually, again, it's that virtuous cycle, is going to create better nervous system response, better immune response, a better hormone response as well. We feel empowered rather than hopeless. We feel hopeful rather than hopeless, because we're doing something. We're taking control of our we're taking control of what we can control. We're controlling the controllables. I think that's so important at menopause. We don't have to be at the mercy of our menopause. So, as you can see, there are definitely many reasons to utilize the power of the subconscious mind and utilize subconscious reprogramming to positively affect our menopause. So that just leaves me with maybe 1 minute to tell you about my brand new range of hypnosis recordings, which I just launched on Monday. It's called the Menopause Mindset Hypnosis Collection, and I've developed this quite innovative range of hypnosis recordings for hot flushes, low libido and brain fog. And yeah, they are, shall I put the link up in the chat box? I'll do that in a moment, but it's basically sallygarozzo.com/shop. And I recommend that you listen to this every day for 30 days. It's 25 minutes out of your day. And even if the suggestions don't go in, which they do, they're hugely powerful. But even if they didn't, and you didn't believe in it at all, you would still get a dose of theta brainwaves, which will positively affect your health. So, yeah, that's all from me. Thank you so much.
Fantastic, Sally. Thank you so much for your input, and your wealth of knowledge when it comes to the mind always astounds me. You add something great and intuitive to each and every Zoom that we have. So now it's time to open up for Q&A. I'm just going to go through the chat box, and it's always interesting to see people's comments. So Liz, there's one question for you about body talk, which is, how do we train ourselves to listen to our body? Is it by being with nature, or is it through meditation? How do you start? So if you haven't done it before, what would you say? You're muted.
So Livia, what I would say, my love, is take yourself out in nature, go and sit down by a tree and really ground yourself with putting your feet on the ground, and really just sitting against the tree, hearing all the sounds, allow the sense of hearing to take over of the sounds around you. And when we go into a really deep inhale and we release, and we can all do this right now, so just take a lovely big breath in, everybody, and really release. A bit like a hovercraft coming down, really allowing the whole body to relax. And again, breathing in and release. And on the release, Livia, we're taking the breath to anywhere in the body where we might feel any pain, and kind of like connect with that part of the body and take the breath even deeper to that space. So again, as Sally was mentioning, we are really moving into the subconscious and tapping into that, which hypnosis is absolutely amazing for. And then we can do that with the breath and really just allow the body to speak to us. The first thing that comes to you, everybody, is always the right thing when we have that gut feeling about something. The trouble is, our little minds get in the way and we start to become logical and try to analyze it. We need to get back how we were when we first kind of like walked the earth plane, and really come back into that intuitive part of our head.
Interesting. And what about over iodine intake?
Okay, so I would definitely have a blood test to see where you are first of all, with Dr. Allie or your own GP, and see where you are with your iodine. And if you are underactive, obviously first of all talk to your GP about the iodine that you can have synthetically. If you want to perhaps give it a try with seaweed, I'm a great believer in about choice, so allowing the body to choose. So taking some seaweed. Clear Springs, everybody, is a very good organisation that does fresh sea vegetables. So put that in your diet, and then Livia, after a while, it may be a good idea then to go back and have a blood test to see if it's balanced out. Because again, you can, you and I can think, oh, am I having enough? What's enough, if you know what I mean? So it would be 2 or 3 times a week, maybe trying some sea vegetables. For people who joined us after my talk, going foraging to lovely little coves, grinding up the seaweed, let it dry out, grind it up, and it becomes like flour, and then you can make these little savoury biscuits, etc., with them and eat them from time to time. But I would have a blood test before, I would put these things in place, and then have another blood test afterwards to see if they have risen, because there's too many foods in the supermarkets, which I'm afraid to say it's not enough for us. We've exhausted the earth. Doesn't matter how much organic we're eating. The land, I have land of my own, and it's not left long enough in between the winter crops and the summer crops and things like that. And so it's really important that we look at our own. Foraging is the best thing because there's no pesticides on anything out in the countryside. This year we're awash with with berries, the rose hips, and all the nuts out there at the moment.
Great, that's brilliant. So Olga, I hope that answered your question about iodine.
I just want to say that with the iodine, the GP tests won't tell you the answer. You really need to be looking at what your iodine load is. So it's a more complicated functional medicine test. There are some concerns about excessive iodine, but people have generally been too afraid of too much iodine. And in fact, because iodine is so important for the thyroid hormones, more of us are deficient in it than have an excess. So it's something for another talk, because it's so in depth, to be honest.
But also, if I might just say, I eat a lot of eggs, by the way, in my diet, because we've got iodine in eggs as well. And I would say, you know, I have an egg a day, sometimes 2 eggs a day, all right, for breakfast, because that's important for me and my body. And I would definitely say, you know, with what Dr. Allie was saying about vitamin D levels, we must look as much food as possible that we can get our vitamin D from, and eggs is another really good source of that. Lovely free range eggs, you can't go wrong. You've got everything in an egg that you need.
Really, really helpful. And yes, the male menopause, the andropause, and Dr. Allie says it's a real problem with lower testosterone levels, increased weight gain, and a spiral towards diabetes and heart disease. Yeah, so obviously let's be aware and check out our male friends and partners and make sure they're taking note of their health as well. They're a lot less likely to go to a doctor than us, aren't they? Less likely to get on a Zoom. So I'm just going through the chat here to see if anyone has any questions. So strength training at home, yes, continue pelvic floor exercises, really paramount. Yeah, interesting. Additional with the resistance band, yeah, because you won't put too much pressure on the joints. Dr. Allie says, yes, strength goes when our testosterone reduces post-menopause. So with testosterone, I guess, Dr. Allie, when that diminishes, we'd only know that by a test, wouldn't we?
Yes, although you can, and it's not something that we tested readily in the NHS, but it's something that you would, that most of us are deficient in after the menopause, and especially if you're feeling that your muscles are weaker, that's because of the reduced testosterone. And you may experience less drive. Sex drive is more, there's more different contributing factors. It can be contributed to by underactive thyroid or overactive thyroid, or adrenal fatigue, or the estrogen deficiency, or the progesterone deficiency. So it's all about in having things in balance, which you can really only tell by testing, although you can get some inference from very specific questionnaires of symptoms.
Okay, thank you. The next question was for you, Dr. Allie. What is DHEA, please?
So DHEA, I posted a link to one of my blog posts in the chat for people. DHEA is it's a calming hormone that balances the cortisol release in stress and helps you recover from stress. And it's also part of the pathway of production of testosterone and estrogens. So it's very important. It's also an anti-aging hormone, and it naturally reduces over time as you age.
Okay, all right. And another question for you. Osteoporosis, apart from magnesium and vitamin D as supplementation, what else would you recommend?
So I recommend everybody have a full advanced cellular nutrition, so you're supporting your cells in producing in the energy that you need, and the mitochondria working. So I have supplements containing 34 different vitamins and minerals, plus grapeseed extract, plus I have ashwagandha, which helps support the adrenals and stress, and many more. So it depends on an individual basis, but certainly I wouldn't just take, I mean, I have people in the NHS coming in saying, oh, I'm taking vitamin E supplements. That's not enough, but I can't recommend the proper stuff in the NHS because I'm not allowed to.
Okay, all right. So thanks for that. And also there was another question a little bit further down. Let me just check. pelvic floor exercises can you recommend? There's many different pelvic floor exercises, but if you go with the basics from what you remember, and Google is a great way to find out some exercises that work for you. So if you're unsure, you can always go to Google. You can look at my website too, which is menopauselifestylesolution.com. There's lots of exercise videos on there. And if you've got any questions about exercise, do feel free to ask. And then somebody asked further up in the chat if they could relook. Yes, this is recorded. It will be recorded and everybody will get the link. That's right, isn't it, Dr. Ali?
It is. And we remembered to press the big record button.
We did. That's great. Okay. So does anybody have a specific question that they would like to ask tonight? Because I think it's important to open it up for everybody. There may be something that's concerning you or you would like to share with the group. If not, you're very welcome to contact Dr. Ali or any one of us separately.
Somebody's asked if DHEA is available in foods. Really, you need to have specific hormone replacement to although there are herbal, it is complicated boosting it naturally as well.
Okay. And the last question that's just come up, the best way to reverse osteopenia?
So the reversing osteopenia is all the things that we've talked about, osteoporosis. So all of that work and really using bioidentical hormone therapy combined with the exercises that Livia will tell you about and the mindset and meditation that we go through with Sally and people. Okay.
All right, just one last chance. Anyone got any last minute questions? Do feel free to put them in the chat or ask. If not, ladies, we will be here every Thursday of every month, except I believe for December, because it hits on the 20th.
It's the fourth Thursday of the month, but we can't do December because that's Christmas Eve, and nobody's going to come online Christmas Eve at 6 o'clock.
So yes, ladies, do spread the word. And
just a note from Jo, I do agree with her. When you are foraging, don't take more than you need. Don't take everything of a plant, even if it's fungi, you know, and be very careful if you're foraging fungi. You really must have a good identification book, because there are so many poisonous fungi out there, and wildlife needs it. That's what it's there for. And when talking, as Liz White has said, about foraging being so good because you're getting reduced chemicals there, but if you're doing it near roads, that will be covered in diesel and petrol fumes, so do be careful.
There was another question from somebody from iPad. I don't know who iPad is, but hello. Is walking weight bearing?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, walking is weight bearing, so that's one of the safest exercises you can do.
Yeah,
great for fat.
Anybody can do it. And I agree, Jo, that there are some poisonous fungi that look just the same as the edible ones, so you do have to be really careful.
I do believe we've got through all the questions. Sally or Dr. Ali or Liz, do you want to add anything extra in tonight before we sign out?
I would just like to say, and Jo has touched on this, she has osteopenia, which is felt to be secondary to anorexia and bulimia. In my little piece, I didn't mention the other things that predispose to osteoporosis. These include celiac disease and overactive thyroid or overtreated thyroid. So some people want to keep their thyroid overtreated because it keeps them slim, but that actually increases osteoporosis, as well as anorexia, where you've lost weight enough to stop your periods, for example.
I'd just like to say a massive thank you to you, Dr. Ali, Livia and Sally. I personally enjoyed so much hearing everything that you had to say. And Livia, you know, as I said in the chat, you know, if there's any chance we could all get together with you on Zoom for some of these exercises, because again, the motivation is really important. And with all us lovely women together, all in the same boat, and enjoying that, and also with Sally to go through possibly a group creative meditation or something would be absolutely wonderful, because for people who haven't experienced this, it is so important as part of our lifestyle now to have other people in our lives that can enrich our lives, but also can help us at many different levels. And I think, you know, for me, it's nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I think it's really important that, you know, we find little things that oh, that sounds great, let's go for it, and see how it is for us. It may not be for somebody else, but you might touch on something and you know, find something just for you that you really love. I noticed in the chat people talking about walking, and walking is so important, and finding different spaces for us to go and walk in. And as I mentioned before, have your phone for safety, but try as much as possible to put the phone on aeroplane mode so that you can really enjoy the beauty around you, and you know, enjoy.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Liz, and it's been lovely to have you tonight. Dr. Allie, thank you so much again, and Sally, and everybody, thanks so much for joining in. And as I said, spread the word, and we will be here on the 4th Thursday of each month, apart from December.
Great, and great to see you all online. Wonderful to have such a good crowd today. Take care.
Thanks very much, everyone. It's been a real pleasure.
Watch out for our emails where we'll be offering our free gifts as well. Take care. Bye.